Good morning and welcome to another beautiful Thursday episode of Jasiri. Now, we're here to bring you the latest stories, insightful conversations, and of course, some lively banter to keep things interesting. You know we can't help ourselves. Like, literally, ladies, can you help yourselves?
No. I can't help
myself. Okay, it's gone. Good morning.
But really, do you know what I was just thinking as you were doing that? We should do the 1, 2, 3, 8 challenge.
Oh, God,
No, I'm not doing.
What?
Because I've been begging this lady.
Because when it gets to that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it just gets
When this thing came out, I was begging this lady.
You didn't beg us well. No, you did not tell me this was the one you wanted to do.
No, we're not doing. Yes, because you refused to do that. Inshallah.
And guess what? I went to go and do challenge with.
I now saw your video.
So she chose them over.
I chose Nollywood legends.
And she stood under the umbrella of, they roped me into it.
Oh,
It
really?
wasn't my fault. It's not in my power.
See,
it
jealousy.
was powers that be, that directed.
Yeah,
Uncle Kepi,
And the dance
Uncle
was all
Fred,
that.
see the haters on the table.
And then Kepi now asked me, say, "Hi, Catherine, where have I been? Biti Bawo, where have I been? How? I've been being."
You've been being. Okay, can we move on now?
Yes.
So no challenge.
Inshallah.
Do it now.
You did it then, you didn't do it yet.
You didn't
I don't know how to do it.
You didn't
I said I
pay.
have 2 left feet. Do you people want me to disgrace
I don't
myself?
understand. 2 left feet, but how did she make how did the 2 left feet?
No. Do you know what it was? It was the
Please, we're not
outfit.
speaking
Did you see how that outfit was looking on me? It's the outfit.
I'm done.
We're so
You are done with.
We're done.
Here with
Yeah.
challenging
Okay, so
you
let's
guys
move
to
on.
do anything.
She's saturated. She needs to be away. I've already agreed.
You know, my spirit is 1 foot.
Actually, you are in holiday mode, too. You better tell them now so that
No,
we
it's
don't
okay.
answer questions.
I've already done everything I should do for her so that she can rest. I paid for it
Okay.
spiritually.
So my
Lola,
1
you've
foot
been
is on the other side of the
clamoring.
Atlantic
You've
right now.
been desiring a vacation here.
It shows.
Oh my God. So they say it
shows.
was supposed to be small banter. Can I move on now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in the end, it's just me and you that are going to be the lowest common LCM of it. Because in
Lowest
August,
common multiple.
multiple.
It's like
no
we-
factor.
Hello.
Lowest common denominator.
Hello. It's like
Denominator,
It's like
yes.
we will be the. You know when they say do LCM and you draw that line and put the number.
The
on
line
that.
in the sand.
It's like me and
The variable and the constant.
Then it gets why. That's why I'm saying this.
Variable
Tolu will
and
report herself
constant.
to you people. And then Lolo is because I just love her. I
okay,
don't
we're
want
not-
to
we're
enter.
not
But it's
complaining.
like me and her are going to be alone.
No, we will
in
contribute for her vacation.
I'll bite you. I will bite.
Yeah.
At least we can send you to Erin Jesha. Erin Jesha.
No, she's from
Waterfall.
Kogi State now. We'll send her home.
Home, yeah. So you haven't been...
Deportation.
No, don't let her go and inaugurate a new well.
Okay. Behave.
A new well.
Ladies, as usual, our daily dose of question before the break. We're going to yank this question. No. Anyway, honestly, these questions really have allowed me to know you better and has allowed all of you to know that I love money. I don't even deny it, you know? But this is the question for today. Would you rather accept $100,000 to start your own business, or would you go with a monthly salary of $5,000? Let me repeat that for you. Would you accept $100,000 to start your own business, or a guaranteed monthly salary of $5,000? Of $5,000.
Monthly salary. When I collect that salary 50 times, it's 100,000. And when I'm collecting the salary, I can just say 2,500 goes to my business, 2,500 goes to me.
My God.
So it's balanced.
Blessings, they just ask this question now. This mathematics and calculus, where did it from come?
Blessings, I would have to carry my chair and sit next to you. You know, these days, I think there's so much pressure for everybody to become an entrepreneur.
To have a side
But
hustle.
the thing is, there are some people that are career people. They will always do 9 to 5. And I don't think there's anything wrong in it. But now this generation, they're making you feel as if you don't do some kind of business, you're not successful.
Well, that's this thing that they say that if you don't work and pay for your own dream, somebody else will pay you to work for their. And it just makes people feel like you're in some kind of drudgery and slavery because you're working for people. It's not like that.
It's not. And people don't understand that
you
9 to
save
5
and
and
do your
entrepreneurship
priorities.
can actually run concurrently. There's a way you build your business to a point where you say, okay, you know what? I'm stepping down from 9 to 5 because I want to focus on my own business.
Yeah.
But you start off working with, whether you like it or not, all this, I don't want to work there, I just want to be, you go so.
There are people that are baby girls for life, and there are people who just came to enjoy Obiageli-ish.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, listen, I don't have time to entrepreneur anything. I just want to live my life in peace and build my castles according to my pocket. So if the people would say $5,000 is just perfect for me. Blessings broke it down now in 2 seconds and 5 milliseconds. She broke it down and said, listen, I'll put this money aside and do this. But there are other people who would roll on the floor and lie down and thank you for the rest of their lives for that $100,000 that you invested in their business.
Yeah.
Because they would probably have a genius business idea, and all they need is that
funds.
That's
injection.
fun.
And likewise,
and they will run with it.
many people want to be entrepreneurs. They have no plan or structure for their business. So that
Yes.
100,000 will fly out.
So that's why, as you were
Yes.
talking, I was even thinking it's important, I think, at some point for people to work for someone before you work for yourself. That's just me. Everybody, it doesn't always equal for everybody. But I think there's something in going through the corporate world, having an idea of corporate structures, even if you're a small business owner, before you start your own thing. So we have a restaurant, I tell you guys, and when I listen to my husband's stories, dealing with staff, dealing with Lagos state agencies, dealing with federal agencies,
Suppliers,
food markets
vendors.
in the food prices in the markets right now, having to weigh options, trying to introduce new things, trying to upscale your staff to be able to, adequately introduce the life of an entrepreneur. I don't envy him.
Yeah.
I just maybe come here. I just have to rub his head. So at the end of the day, I will take personally the 5,000 salary monthly. These are my reasons. One, an entrepreneur does not get any time off. You're working 24 hours, 7 days a week. Entrepreneurs, that is that life. Me, I can do my structured because the law says I only have to work certain days. I get HMO and benefit, and do that. And as Blessing said, you can still take from that 5,000 and start working towards your business. I think that is, for me, that is how it goes, because I don't like hard work.
Yeah,
And I agree.
There's no easy routes, to be honest.
You make hard work.
100,000 in a new... It has to be.
Does hard work.
corporate work.
Make it look really easy, really, in as much as it has its own kings and things.
Oh my,
Tolu,
it does, though.
When you look at Tolu and how she goes about it,
God.
you just have to admire her.
But that thing that Blessing says is very true. There are too many small business owners who, they get this 100,000. If you come back in 6 weeks, they may not be able to account for 75,000.
It's gone.
Honestly.
So really also, it's, what did you say last week? Human, know thyself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to, well, others also, there are people who can get structured and
But
know that,
I'm
okay.
pissed that there's no option like marry a rich man that gives you 100,000 per month.
How did we...
Producer.
Okay, let's go for a break.
Please, let's also make sure we are equal opportunists. We spread all the opportunities out on the table.
Exactly. Because I wouldn't even have thought twice or done all these
Really?
If there was
hectic
which
calculations.
option, if there was which option, let's to be clear. Let's
Last
be
one,
clear.
marry someone who will give you 100.
Why are you whispering? Speak it out loud.
Marry a rich man.
Okay. So
Or
that
those
what can
silence
happen
are-
to
that
your...
can-
Which one is, you see?
you understand?
We,
Meanwhile, what
we
can
say
happen?
some nice things and we now spoil it.
No, who is
Meanwhile,
the we
there's
that's
some-
spoiling it?
Marry a rich man. Is
Meanwhile,
that
there's some
an
clauses to that,
aspiration?
isn't it? There's some
Is that
add-ons.
aspirational?
My sister.
Marrying a rich man, is that aspirational?
It's,
From a-
it's additional. It's additional to my aspiration.
Ah, please, when feminists are talking, when they are beginning to talk about women emancipation,
I'm out of the group chat.
do not please be there.
I want to leave
Go
the
to
soft
one of
rubber.
those olden days, be one of the furnitures they buy into their houses.
As long as
Yes.
they give me allowance.
So
I
which
will-
furniture would
I
you
will
be?
sit pretty
Which
as a
furniture?
chair.
Which furniture would
Lounge
As a
chair.
chair, yeah.
No, but they'll be
Lounge
sitting
chair.
on you now if you're a chair in the house. They'll
No,
just
she's
be
part of
sitting.
his
Or a
acquisitions.
TV.
No, if he
So that everybody can watch you.
No.
But when you
There's a
blow,
movie
go-
like that. I
if
think
you-
it was like a literal representation of how women marry into rich families, and the woman was sitting like she was a furniture. I don't know how they did it, but she was sitting on the table 24/7. The man would go there. Oh, how are you? Give her some money and go to work, and she's just like, oh, welcome back. this is such boring life.
There's a lot.
That's for you to say.
I don't
Meanwhile,
want the life. I don't want a useless
No, what church
life.
do you
What makes it useless?
Oh, just
I
sitting
don't
down
want
and
to
looking
lie.
pretty. But let me not
See,
lie.
not every
in,
rich
in
man.
an alternate
have to sit
world,
down.
honestly, Tolu, in an alternate world, I am the mistress of a sheikh.
And in an alternate world, I'm a kept woman.
Yeah.
Like, so let's
mistress
not all
of the
lie
street.
about
Let's
it.
not lie.
Let's not lie about
Yeah.
it.
I mean, in
Alternate
an alternate world,
worlds.
like I'm doing my thing, but I'm getting money allowance. So like, don't pay me.
So
that's fine.
there's your money, there's his money, and there's our money.
No, but sure you know that if they're keeping you like that, there's no room for work.
Why is there no room for
Oh,
work?
there is no.
No, of
What
course
kind
there
of
can
work
be.
Of course.
What kind of work? Is it domestic work?
No, not domestic. You know,
I like how
I know they may not
I
want
like how
you
you
to
said
do,
that domestic.
They may not want you to do 9
What?
to 5, but all this thing you just be seeing so and so foundation. At least just be walking about.
My sister, if
I'll be
you're
wearing your Gucci shoes. Sorry, your
Did you
genuine
see-
leather.
Did
We
you
need to
read-
go for a break. Go ahead.
Did you read about the richest man in India?
Why is
His
your eyes
son's
shining?
wedding.
Is that thing true? No, the wife.
I saw. Oh,
Wait, her phone
wife.
pouch. The fiance, the young lady who just got married to their son, or his
no.
own
his
wife.
own wife.
Okay,
No,
so
They
it's
say she
fine.
never wears one shoe twice.
Did you see her phone pouch?
My sister, what
my-
$50,000?
Her what?
Okay.
Phone pouch.
Phone pouch.
The iPhone pouch.
She
is more
has a
expensive than
diamond
the phone.
encrusted car.
Yes, in the garage.
So in an alternate life, you would
And you
be
are
the
saying
mistress
that's
of
what-
the-
I am a. It's not like I would be. Please watch your words.
I'm so sorry.
I am the mistress of a sheikh.
Okay. Last.
Mistress?
I keep
Yes.
saying it. Last.
Please take us on a break.
All our graves are gonna be the same.
No, but
You will go,
6 feet down.
No, diamond encrusted, please.
but you will
Are you there
go
to enjoy it?
with nothing, as you arrived with nothing. But right now, let's take a quick break. Well, in the alternate life. Jeez.
Welcome back. We're streaming live on our social media platforms. We are at News Central TV. Now, use the hashtag Jasiri to be a part of the conversations, and so we know that you're watching. Today, we want to explore a significant development in Nigeria's legislative landscape. The move to create 74 additional seats strictly for women in the National and State Assemblies. Now, the bill requesting this recently passed second reading in the House of Representatives. It seeks to amend sections 48 and 49 of the Constitution to provide one special seat reserved exclusively for women in the Senate and House of Representatives for each state of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, the FCT. Now, joining us to dissect this conversation is the founder and executive director of the Women in Leadership Advancement Network, the one with the beautiful smile. She's a renowned advocate for women's empowerment and leadership in Nigeria. And through her work with Willen, she has tirelessly championed gender equality as well as the inclusion of women in all the facets of leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, no ladies, please make welcome Abosede George-Ogan. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, thank you, ladies, for having me on your table.
Look at that.
She's been privy to all the behind the scenes gist that we're very good
She
at.
called it
That had
comedy.
nothing to do with
Exactly.
Free
legislative.
comedy. So let's get the conversation started.
Yes. So before we get deep into the bill and its potential, I think it's important that we notice or realize the status of women, you know, in the political landscape. Now, according to the facts, like Tolu said, facts don't lie.
Yes.
A woman has never been elected governor of a state in Nigeria. Now, on a list of African countries, Nigeria ranks 46th of the number of women in parliament. Also, Nasarawa State has only one female legislator, that's Hajarat Danyaro Ibrahim. Please, can you help us widen this picture? And looking at the current bill that we're talking about, where does this stand? What is the possibility of that?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I mean, one of the things that you missed out talking about state assemblies is that there are 15 states in this country today where when the state's assembly seat, there are no women.
Oh, wait.
15.
So I actually thought
Out
the
of
one for
36.
Nasarawa was the worst. So there's
That's
even
my
zero.
point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So Nasarawa has one.
One.
Wow.
There are 15 states today
With zero
that when the state
Yeah.
assembly seats,
There's
No women.
no women. Yes, out of the 36 states. So, I mean, you know, it's important for us to start to paint the picture from there so that we can start to understand why we need what some people will call a special measure, right? They're different names, right? So a special measure, it's a temporary measure, temporary special measure for why we should intervene. You know, when you see a problem, you intervene.
Yep.
And this is an instrument to intervene. So, as I said, we only have, or rather there are 15 states where there are no state, with state assemblies without women. So that's where we start from. As you already know, our House of Representatives, the lower chamber, is sitting with 360 members and only 16 are women. There's a problem with that. 108 senators with only 4 women. There is a problem with that. You know, I'm starting from here because a lot of us have heard it before, but I think sometimes it doesn't click. So we have surface conversations about why are we doing this. You know, if you go back to the people who are opposing the bill, they're saying, you know, based on our constitution says we are equal, we should have equal rights, right? But they're saying our constitution makes provision that there should be no discriminatory law. But excuse me, 109 senators and only 4 women. The question I have for those people is, does that picture not look like it is discriminatory? So for me, that's the foundation, right? And so this bill is now saying we want to introduce a temporary special measure. Now, I think it's really important for us to highlight that for a lot of the countries we celebrate today. Now, you talked about the statistics for Africa, and you said we were 46th. Were you trying to be nice by not saying we were last?
No.
Because, you know, it can sound different.
It's euphemism.
We're at the bottom of the ladder. We're at the bottom of the
You know what I'm
world.
saying? And the fact that a lot of any country that is below that, unfortunately, were recently war-torn countries. So why are we in that league? And why is that the lane that we're operating in, right? So that's how dire it is. But let's go to the countries that we celebrate, whether it's Rwanda, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Kenya, whether it's Uganda, Tanzania. They all have gender quotas, legislated gender quotas.
Legislated affirmative action.
Absolutely. And there are different forms, right? So it could be a reserved seat bill, like the one that we're talking about this morning. It could be at the party level, because that was some of the argument that people made. They're like, take this to the party level, right? And then it could also be a specific quota, which is in whether it's appointive office or elective office. Now, the reserved seat bill says, let us add seats. Now, why that is important, and I must say this, it's really funny, but for the people who have been advocating for this for even longer than some of us, they will tell you that because look at it, today, 360 seats, only 16 are occupied by women. So when you say 35% affirmative action, which is one of the mechanisms, the question they ask you is, so whose seats do you want to collect?
Yes.
Why does it have to be so?
So that's why the minimum we want to do is, shift. Let's put
Let's put a chair
So if you're
here.
saying that we're coming to take your seat and you want to hold your seat,
No problem.
Take your
give
seat,
us,
hold it.
add another chair to the table.
But let us be clear. In addition to this bill, women can still run for office, like, you know, for these other seats. But it has evidently been so difficult. And I think that's the part that the denial that I'm confused. And that's why I said, if you say this is a discriminatory law, when you look around you and you see only men, don't you think that is discrimination?
So we'll get to Catherine's question in a moment, but just in terms of laying the foundation for this conversation, this bill would be a major change, as Blessing said earlier, to Nigeria's political landscape. We talked about Nigeria being last on the continent, but Nigeria is 182nd out of, 184th out of 192 countries.
In the IPU.
Yes.
In
So
the
we're just
International
separated by how many?
Parliamentary
That's by
Union
8
ranking.
places before we get to the bottom of the ladder when it comes to women's representation in national parliaments globally. So you touched a bit on it a little bit, but I want us to just stretch it out a little bit. What challenges are Nigerian women facing in participating in politics? Because if you legislate a bill that has numbers, but you don't deal with the root causes, those numbers will still struggle. And then somebody will come back and tell you and say, you see, they can't even
meet
Exactly.
this.
Yes.
Exactly. So, I mean, patriarchy. And some will say that word again, but it is an entrenched system where the male gender is privileged. Summary, right? And I don't think anyone can argue with that, whether you're male or female in the context of Nigeria. The male gender is privileged, right? On certain fronts. And I know some people don't like to say this because, like to hear it, because they're like, in politics, everybody hustles, right? Is equal, you run. But like I said, the evidence doesn't lie. The point is, whether you say it is the same journey, when they get to the end of the race, who's at the table? It tells you that it is difficult for someone to get there. There is a gender that is finding it harder to get there. So there are a variety of issues, but underpinning it is patriarchy. There are religious and social challenges, right? So it's systemic, right? It's systemic, it's structural, right? And then there is the individual side of it. But to be honest, it's really systemic. So think about party politics, right? The question is, and then remember that female candidates are seen as high risk.
Why?
Because they believe they won't win. So if 5 of us represent a party, what do you want to do during election?
You have no choice.
You want to win. So who do you put as candidate? Somebody who you believe can win. So female candidates are seen as high risk. So the question is, who de-risks the female candidate to say, you know what, this party is going to take a chance? Unfortunately, you would see, based on evidence, that it is the smaller parties. So if you look at 2023 election, I think ADC or something had the most, you know, female candidates. Again, the question is, does the structure allow them to win? So do you see what I'm trying to say? So to your point, these are the fundamental things that they're dealing with. And then, let's be honest, how many women will go and tell their family members, call family meeting, dear family, I have decided I want to run for House of Representatives. They will now clap for you. No. Who's going to take care of your children?
What are you looking for?
What are you looking for? Is it your type that used to go there? So these are the issues that women are contending with, right? And then let's be honest, we also have self-doubt, right? We have not been prepared to go into this terrain. And all of a sudden, you want us to show up there and, you know, act like we know what we're doing, right? So I think there's a part where we need to equip ourselves for leadership. So that's the individual level. So like I said, it's both systemic, structural, and individual.
All right. So I'm sorry. I know it's a continuous conversation. I mean, we can, and because you speak so eloquently, it's easy to be caught up.
To just listen.
It's easy to be caught up. But there's an interesting thought process shared by one of the co-sponsors of the bill, George-Ogan. He said, and I quote, "The bill is anchored on the fundamental principle of equitable representation, and it aims to empower women by ensuring their voices are not only heard, but that they actively contribute to shaping the legislative landscape and the overall development of our nation." He added that the issue of gender equality and representation lies at the heart of our constitutional democracy. We'll get into why some are opposing the bill, but this is basically his thought process. What do you make of it?
No, I think that, you know, he really, much better than I or anybody could describe, he has told us what fundamentally is missing. There is a cost of exclusion. We are paying a really high price for exclusion.
So wait, who is the we?
Yes. I'll tell you, the we is all of us in Nigeria. And that's the argument I always make. You know, that if you want Nigeria to be better, so you're on the one side saying, I want Nigeria to be better. And we are telling you that the evidence shows us, again, and I know I spoke about it the last time I was here, when you talk about the human development indicators around healthcare, around education, right? There is evidence that shows that when you have more inclusion, right, in terms of who's at the table, it leads to more inclusive policies, right? Because God bless the men, but you cannot make a law or a policy for a pregnant woman. Even if you were there with your wife,
You still can experience it.
it's not the same. It's not your lived experience. So the point is that right now we are losing on the contribution of half of the population. Right?
We're hobbling. One hand is behind our back.
That's it. Or the analogy of you're flying with one wing. There's only one thing that can happen. You will crash. So to your point, what are we missing? There is a cost of it. It's a high cost we're paying.
Is it until we crash that it becomes clear to us that...
As far as I'm concerned, we've crashed, no?
Or we've been in the state of crashing for a while.
Exactly. So the question is, how deep do we want to be buried?
We want to be buried.
We're in desperate need of female leadership. And I mean, for us at Wayland, this is what we sleep and breathe because, and you know, the point you made about, okay, so the law changes, what happens? I think it's a really important point. That's why shaping perception is one of our pillars because we actually do not, it won't change overnight.
No.
However, there is evidence also that instruments like a legislated quota can force behavior change, and I'm not mad at that at all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm listening, and I know that when it comes to bills, we're looking at paper and written word. The bill is seeking to amend Section 48 and 49 of the Constitution, and that is to provide one special seat reserved exclusively for women because words are really important.
Yes.
In the Senate and the House of Representatives for each state of the Federation and the FCT. This will be effective after the term of the current National Assembly. So that means it's a
The 11th
future,
National
Assembly.
the 11th one. And subject to review every 16 years. That's what this bill seeks to amend. And another one is the Section 91 of the Constitution, which is to provide 3 special seats reserved exclusively for women in the House of Assembly of each state of the Federation, which shall be spread across the 3 senatorial districts of each state. I read it because it's important that we know that the letter that we're trying to push across.
Absolutely.
Because out of one of the or the challenges that legislation faces is interpretation. Would you say that on the face of this amendment proposed, is it worded right enough that when you look at it face value, would it pass? Because passing first reading is one thing, second reading is one thing. And getting through to where we wanted to get to, and they will now pick out, or they would
Pick on.
or bring
remove.
it down
Yeah.
based on just what is said. Looking at this on face value, do you think this adequately captures, or we need to, you know, change some wording?
So you know that this bill, as you know, this bill was presented at the 9th Assembly.
Yes.
Right. But it was thrown out.
Along with a number of other
Gender bills. So I lay that foundation because obviously, as you know, it was championed by a female House of
Olujimi?
Rep. No, Honorable Nkiri Onyejocha.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
at the time, who was Deputy Chief Whip. And why I say that is there was a lot of collaboration with civil society and all of that. And I have to sort of commend Benjamin Kalu for taking on the baton, right? So to your point, it's a baton collection, right? And there had been a lot of work gone into drafting what you have just read out. Now, to your point around, because it goes to committee, next stage, right? It's committee. And that's where they start to poke and pick.
Prod.
And prod, exactly. And to be honest, it will be difficult because when you say, it's a very simple math, right? We have 36 states and the FCT, 1 seat reserved for women. House of Representatives, Senate. And then when you come to the state, 3 seats. It's simple math. So my point is, it's either they fiddle with the numbers, right? But you can't fiddle with, we have 36 states. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I really think that the way that it has been drafted really makes it difficult. It's either you're for it or you're against it. But what we're trying to achieve is super clear. I think where the challenge comes in is in the math. And I'll explain. Nigerians today already think we have a bloated
National
Assembly.
Bloated government even.
Exactly. And so some people, and I think that would be the first argument, would say, are you kidding me? 111 additional seats.
Yes, because now when you add it all together,
To 469.
we'll now be paying 111 additional lawmakers.
500. So that's the first, I think that's the major criticism against the bill. However, an organization called Policy, Legal and Advocacy, PLAC, has done in-depth, and this is a paper that's publicly available, in-depth analysis on the extra costs for additional seats. And it is nothing compared to what we're losing. That's the point, right? So it comes, they actually, based on the budget, the last budget, because this was presented at the 9th Assembly, based on the last annual budget, it was going to be 0.0000. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very minute added cost in comparison to what we are currently losing
For not having
an inclusive assembly. I thought I would be upfront with that because for a lot of people listening, if you could get people to call in, that's what they'll be writing. Are you kidding me? But like I said, that's why we laid the foundation of how bad things are. And something else you mentioned, there is a sunset clause in this bill because it's part of it, which says it will be reviewed every 16 years. Because it's a temporary special measure, right? Which means you see a problem, you want to solve for it. You check in after 4 election cycles. You look around the table, oh, wow, it has balanced out. Oh, we don't need it anymore. So I think it's important to also mention that. There is a sunset clause of 16 years, which is 4 election cycles. But guess what? If after 16 years, we look around and we see that it's only those women who can run under the reserved seats for women that are around the table, we say we need to go again.
Yes.
For another 16 years.
But I mean, looking at this from a broader, from a vantage point, how does adding this extra seat affect the political landscape? Because already you say that people are complaining, and it's obvious that we're sinking, right? So of course we need this, but is it going to have any negative effect, or what is the positive impact that it will have on the political landscape, especially looking at party politics? You mentioned the fact that, you know, some of these, the women in these parties are high-risk candidates. So it takes one person to just, let's push this agenda. So how is it going to affect the political landscape?
I mean, I think that's really interesting. And that's where I sort of mentioned that this is the kind of instrument that can shift behavior. Because what automatically happens, right? So I think it's in South Africa that they do the zebra, where it's like 1 male, 1 female, 1 male, 1 female, 1 male.
1 to 1.
Exactly, at the party level. So the list, you can't bring a list that doesn't have that, right? So to your point, what shifts at the party level immediately is that, for example, when you're submitting your House of Representative candidates, there must be a woman. Meanwhile, there are many parties today, when they submit a list, there's no woman.
Of course.
Right? But with this bill, you must have a woman. Now, what does that automatically do? The party is forced to think about pipeline. Automatically. It forces them to think about pipeline. Do we have an active women's wing, if you've been using it for just fanfare, right? Because you're going to have to present a solid female candidate. Remember that we're also going to be 5 parties. And you're going to bring your female candidate. You're going to bring yours. I'm going to bring mine. You're going to bring yours. So they better be solid because it's only one of us that can win. Let's be clear as well, right? It's still an election. So parties are going to be forced to start to think, wait a minute. Who are the women in my party? So if you've been bringing women who you thought you just want, they're not empowered. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you'd have to rethink
You have to rethink that. Do you see what I'm saying? So at the party level as well, I think we will see a shift. And that's why I said this is such an important instrument, and the evidence shows us that it can shift behavior and force behavior change.
So, Kat, you have the next question.
Yeah, I was saying, even though the bill has passed the second reading, there's been some oppositions and many people have opposed it. So let's take a look at Senator Tijani now, who says the bill offends the spirit of the Constitution and has the potential to undermine party politics. He's advocating that instead, the National Assembly should consider bills on appointive positions. Now, Senator Juwon Alao Akala now says the bill is going to promote inequality by treating women especially. He is a son of former governor of Oyo State, Adebayo Alao Akala. He said he and his colleagues got into the House based on merit. Therefore, the argument of exclusion doesn't hold water. So you see, one person is saying this, and Alao Akala is saying, no, you can't say that because we came here, we arrived at where we are based on merit. What do you make of these arguments?
So first of all, you know, Nigeria is a signatory to the CEDAW Treaty, right? Which is the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. all right? Even the Beijing platform for action. Based on that, we should have achieved equality since. Right? So if you sort of link that to the Constitution, I'm confused. So it means that, and then remember that we have a national gender policy. I keep talking about this policy because we had this policy since 2006. Yes. And it's a beautiful document. And as you know, we don't have a problem. And it even has an implementation plan. Solid, I'm telling you, and timeline. So what I'm trying to say is when I'm hearing this, and you know, when I even hear merit, let's not even go into that because you called a particular name, but it's okay. I won't go into the details of that, but he should look around. That's all you know, the question I have for him is, look around the Senate.
So how is that equality?
How is that equality? So are you saying women did not arrive with you? And were they part of the race with you?
Oh.
Do you see?
Exactly.
So it's a little hypocritical, to be honest.
Yes,
you know, because the question is, okay, at the when like Olympics is coming, right? At the beginning of the race, the question is, if there are no women there, who will get to the finish line?
Of course, it's the male representation.
So it goes, you know,
So for me, we have already violated our rights.
These conventions.
And all the conventions and everything. And even our constitution. We're in violation of our constitution. By the way, you know that, you talked about appointive office. Is that, the question is, why is that the option?
And
the alternative?
Even when we talk about appointive office, how many female ministers do we have at the high level that are not Minister of State? And they're not assigned to the
portfolios
that is women child affairs, whatever nomenclature you want to give it, because the Tinubu administration did actually change some of the names, but we see where they're placed. And oftentimes it is a tokenism, it is some kind of connection and some kind of owner or some kind of, it's a pali thing. That's not, so that's appointive. So appointive offices have never really done Nigerian women well.
And to be honest, I would be happy to have this conversation if we've had 50-50. The UK just had an election. And then the Prime Minister appointed his cabinet. We looked around the table. It's literally, so it's a cabinet of 24, and he has 11 women. That's 40-something plus %.
And then if you also now break it down into not just gender, but race.
So
they are also even working on inclusion because of how now the demographic...
So I think what I'm trying to say is that in Nigeria, the conversation we should be having around appointive office, if you want to sort of pitch your tent there and say, in your mind, this is where women should be operating, it should be 50-50. Because we're 49% of the population.
Abosede, I'm going to combine my question and Lolo's question because of time, but it's to lay another foundation, unfortunately, antecedents that are not kind to half of Nigeria's population. So a similar bill on creation of extra legislative seats was introduced in the last assembly, as you mentioned, of course, but lawmakers rejected the bill. It was also one of 5 gender bills introduced into the assembly. One of the bills sought to grant citizenship to foreign-born husbands of Nigerian women. Another bill sought to allocate 35% of political positions based on appointment to women. And following the rejection of the bills, women's groups barricaded the entrance of the National Assembly in protest at the time. The then leadership of the House had promised to revisit the bills, but failed to do so until the House adjourned. And since then, it's been crickets until now. And of course, as you said, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Kalu, one of the 13 co-sponsors of the bill. But I set all of that to show there's an antecedent to how we treat bills and legislation that impact or affect Nigerian women. A Nigerian man can automatically transfer Nigerian citizenship to the woman he marries. A Nigerian woman cannot do the same. And
but we're equal, and the Constitution says that.
And it's based on merit, remember? It's also based on merit.
I like that phrase.
But I asked that to ask, let's say for all intents and purposes, second reading done, do you ever think this will make it to the table of the president? Or also won't get watered down? I mentioned, I think, was it Senator Biodun Olujimi? Is it Olujimi?
Yes.
That also was working on a gender and equal
opportunity
opportunities.
bill.
And how many attacks she got, and how eventually the bill was so watered down, she herself said she didn't feel like she could present it again. Could we see this bill, as it has been presented at second reading, actually make it to the table of the president of Nigeria?
So, you know, there comes a time where there is collective what's the word now? Is it disenchantment? And I think we're there.
Oh, we're there.
As a country. And to be honest, if both chambers of the Assembly are not embarrassed, I would be very surprised because it's embarrassing. Remember that we're an assembly, they have global parliaments, right? So people know. And the question is, how are we representing ourselves globally, right? Because you see, is that, what is it called? Local champion. If we if we are comparing ourselves with ourselves, that's fine. But you read the stats around Africa. We're not doing great.
No.
So, and then globally, 182. Is that what we want to be talking about? So for me, this is not even a conversation we should be having about the alternative, about it not being, getting to the president in terms of assent. To be honest, I'm not ready to conceptualize that as an option, to be honest, at this point, right? It is the only option is that this gets to committee level, then it goes to the Senate, and they also concur, and then it goes to the president, right? I would be optimistic to say that if there was a president that would assent to this, it would be this president. I would be optimistic to say that, right? So we better make sure that it gets to the president. That's what I would say. I don't think we have an option. The cost is too much. I'm sure you can tell my frustration. But because this is the work that we do day in, day out, it's just we're putting too much on the table. So, Tolu, I guess my point is I'm not willing to have an alternative conversation. I think what you just shared should be a reminder, okay, that those who are opposing the bill, it should be a reminder to them that there are so many other areas that Nigerian women are being discriminated against. So they can't take this one area and say this is a discriminatory law. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
The only option we have, and before we wrap up, let me say this. The political landscape of any nation changes everything about that nation. So that is why this is different. Because if we change our political landscape, we will change every area in terms of women's representation and leadership.
Wow. So we're just at the beginning of this conversation because the bill has passed second reading, but there is very, very strong opposition to it. Some saying merit, some saying about the spirit of the Constitution. As Abosede George-Ogan of Willen is following up, we're also following up very closely. And we also extend an invitation to those in favor, and particularly those opposed to this bill. Come and sit at the table. Let's talk about it and why you feel that Nigerian women are not deserving of these extra seats. That would be an interesting conversation. I would love to have it here.
Just keep me at the back.
Wow, what a very insightful conversation. And just as Tolu said, we are not at the end of it at all. This is just a beginning. And I actually think that when she talked about women, individual challenges, women need to start to work on our psyche. Because even if they're advocating, we need to start to educate ourselves so that when this time that we all hope will comes, we have women that are ready to just go.
Absolutely.
And that's the work that we
need
have
to
to
see
do.
the possibility, not just dream it. Because it's one thing to say, oh, I wish one day women, but we're not empowering ourselves for that day.
So we need to start preparing. As far as I'm concerned, you know me, I've already considered this bill passed. So let's start preparing, and that's the work we are committed to as well.
We have
Thank
to do.
you.
Thank you so much, Abosede George-Ogan. Anyway, this is where we have to say goodbye on today's episode of Jasiri. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation because I did. Join us tomorrow because it's our Friday edition, and because it's the last Friday that one of us will be here before she jets off to wherever she's going. Hot Topic Special.
Why are you announcing for me, Village Town Crier?
I just said wherever. And I didn't even mention who. But LFO concept has worked. Anyway, thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
And goodbye.